going to be. I'm glad I've got that resolved and are here. We're going to see what we can do with this. How many of you guys have been out saugeye fishing already? Kind of hard to be here today, isn't it? Well, my name is Troy Becker, known as Fish Slim by many people. I'm an avid saugeye fisherman, and if you're new, how many's new at saugeye fishing? How many's new at saugeye fishing? Can you hear all right out there? Okay. They're saying the volume needs to, can we go up a little more? Okay. So, how many of you guys have been saugeye fishing for a good while? How many of you guys want to catch more saugeyes? That's the key, isn't it? Well, I've been chasing saugeyes since they were born, and I'm still learning today, and that was 1978. So you never are going to quit learning on how to do this. I'm going to try to figure me a spot where everybody can see what's going on and grab things. I might be going back and forth. This is not the way I expected to do it. But we want to be talking today on keeping up with the saugeye. What must we do? Are you keeping up with the saugeyes? Or are you stuck in tunnel vision? Got those blinders on, you're so used to specific things that's you, and you think there's going to be an end to the tunnel, but you stay right there? Well, the goal is that we're going to try to enhance your vision, broaden your vision. How many of you guys are doing this? You see yourself doing this? When you're at, say, at Indian Lake or one of the channels and the guys are fishing beside you, you're so focused many times on what you're doing, but you're not opening your eyes to see what things are going on around you. This vision can really slow you down in your progress and knowledge. So what we're going to do is show you how to broaden your vision. Grow your knowledge. Do we understand what knowledge really means? I learned this a long time ago. There's going to be 3 things we're going to talk about, the importance of it. It's going to make you have successful fishing trips, or at least try. I want you to keep these in mind, and we're going to talk about them as 1, location, 2, depth, 3, presentation. That's that tunnel I was talking about. How many times do we get stuck in a certain presentation, and even though it's working, we don't do anything about it? I knew I had that slide. I usually have a clicker. But what we're going to do today rapidly is go through how you can gain it quicker. This might not make sense, but we're going to go for you guys. How many got a boat? Great. There's a few of you. So the most of you are going to be like me. You shore fish mostly? Okay. We're going to talk about how that boat, and these guys that have these boats that have electronics like side imaging, 360, mapping, and front forward facing sonar or live scope, can affect you to make you gain your knowledge of, what did we say? Location, depth, and presentation. How? You could say, doesn't seem to make sense. But here's how. New school electronics help grow your knowledge quickly. How many of you have the new, more advanced graph on your boats? You have mapping, you have the side scan. It's pretty much basic now for many of the boats to get that. How many of you go even farther though and have the secret weapon? Fish can't hide anymore from front image sonar and from live scope. How many of you are using some of that in your fishing? Any of you? Okay, I got a couple. I want you all to know he's in the back corner. So this is the guy that I want you to say, hey buddy, when you're out in the boat, I'd love to jump on with you a day or two. Just, you think you'd go by that shoreline that I fish all the time, side scan that for me? He's like Becker, and he's not doing this, he's like this. But that's what this has done. The new age of electronics have taken the knowledge curve for fishermen and taken it from years and years like I've had to do, and many of us, and taken it to where within many times a summer, a guy can really understand his lake and the presentations and how the depth is important as to where you're fishing and presenting baits. We have, what do we have? We have down view now. We have forward view. We have scout view, meaning you can really expand it out. With those things in mind, by having that, these guys in the boats, and especially we see the tournament world turned upside down, are able to quickly pick out the fish they want to chase. Now, you notice this, it says crappie on a brush pile. Why do you think I put that up there? Before, I always sawguy fished, but I also crappie fished. I used to do a lot of tournaments for a reason. My buddy that I crappie fished with, when something new came out, it was on his boat. So when Live Scope came out, he had it. When he had 360, he had it. He had all those electronics that I was just talking about. So when we were fishing these lakes that I've fished for years from shore, and even with my boat that only has a little graph on it, I was able to use this time with him on the water to understand my water that I'm fishing. Things that I thought were maybe brush piles turned out to be nothing more than a hump. Things that I thought were humps turned out to be stumps. What the electronics can do is turn it into a visual experience of watching these fish. Now again, you're going, well, how does that help me as a shore guy? We'll get to that. Ways of fishing is drastically changing with front-forward sonar. This is actually a crappie one that I had, and it was a video. This is literally dropping 2 jigs down in front of an individualized sonar. Now you can tell by the picture, this isn't even new. The newer stuff's so clear you could tell if that was a crappie. But what he was able to do then was react that fish into biting. If it didn't, what do? They move on to the next one. The other aspect of what front imaging is doing is helping these ones to realize if you are in your boat, how many times when you're fishing for saw guys, you're looking at the bottom. You're looking over on the point edge, but how many of you are looking up here in the water column? I say saw guys love to be shallow. Well, guess what? They can be 6 to 8 foot deep, over 35 foot, and we're not fishing for them. That is something that I learned as well. And you can learn that even in your shore fishing, the lakes that we do, by the depths in which you're fishing. I don't care if the lake's 6 foot deep or 30 foot and you have a drop that goes from 3 foot of water down to 30, you have to learn to use your presentations of fishing all that column. Location, depth, and then the presentation to make those fish bite. It does help you catch more fish. And it will help you also catch more fish. Now, we don't have a lot of guys here that do have boats. I was hoping for a few more that had some of this. But so we're really going to relay this to us as the shore guys now. How is that really helping us get more fish? Most of us can't afford all this. I can't. You got $5 grand to spend? I mean, it's coming down. But like a lot of us, if we are in a boat, we might be able to get the mapping and get the different side imaging and those portions. But here's what else you need to do in your gaining knowledge and understanding. How many of you pull up topo maps on your phone or on your computer of your local favorite lake? Hands? I'd say 30% of the individuals here put their hand up. Do you want to gain the knowledge? Do you want to expand your vision? That is one of the biggest things, even especially from shore, that you as an individual can do. Now, do your homework, and if you got a buddy that has a boat, and he has side scan, and you say, hey, would it be all right if you're on that lake today? I'll pay for the gas and the time. I got some spots I fish from shore that I think I know what I need, but from looking at the graph, there looks like there's a couple other things. Would you mind side scanning that, taking me out, side scanning? What did I just do? Actually, I might have gained a friend or an enemy after the first time, but actually, I am using a way of someone else's electronics to help me understand my lake better. But once that happens, you have to do the homework. You then have to go do the footwork. And don't go to the local good, great spots we all go to, Moundwood, there, Buckeye Lake, it's Leeds, Fairfield, Alum Creek, it's the dam, places like this, and start your fishing. You have to be willing to sacrifice to gain knowledge. I've done it for ever since they were born, and I didn't learn it overnight. And the next thing I'm saying is it's really frustrating the amount of time and effort that I have put into learning these saw guys and how they react and work, to only have new wave technology come and have all these young guns that are out here that have that technology and know how to play them video games. It over there. This is the next thing. We all got this, right? We said the computer. Well, I get online, and especially with the front imaging, do this for your homework as to learn about location, presentation, depth and presentation. What I'm saying is, Kevin Van Dam just said the same thing in this article in this video I watched. He's one of the best bass fishermen there ever was, and he retired, he said, at the right time, because dadgummit, these young bucks are there, and within a year, they're kicking everybody's butts. Why? Because they're using that information that's been put before us where we're at in a stream of time. You can do the same. You can get online and click up forward imaging, walleye fishing, and see live videos of these guys literally chasing these fish and learning where and looking at the features that are on the bottom of that lake. You have that topo map. You then can do that yourself personally and then go to your lakes and start fishing them. I've done just this. As of last year, I gained 9 spots at Indian Lake. Now, I've fished that lake for 43 years. I have walked by probably 6 of these spots every year and never fished them. But by going out and getting some side scanning with a friend, after I did the homework and said, hey, check these, could we go do it? I have 9 new spots that are producing saw guys for me. How many of you guys fish Indian Lake? How many guys can you honestly say you've seen me much? Used to be a lot. Brandon chases me. He looks around for it. That happens. But you know what's going on? Is I'm taking the knowledge that you can gain as well. I am now going out with the footwork and gaining myself new places. I'm getting the opportunity to fish where no one else is doing it. You see how that works? You could gain the same way. Now, say you're an individual that's just starting out. I'm not saying go jump into this and start walking. Go to Moundwood. Go to the places where people are already fishing that we know certain times of the day and night and evening has got specific bites. Talk with those guys. Watch. We all do that. Brandon, we know we're visual on how we fish around the lake, and we keep our eyes open to what's happening around us. It's a key aspect to our fishing. So we're going to talk about lures. This is an interesting thing. Berkeley is leading the way in front forward sonar. They've got the, I think you call it the Courage jerkbait spelled backwards with the reverse lip. Then they have the switch and they have the finisher. But I want you to look at those baits as we go along. We're going to talk about these baits. What do you think the #1 search bait for all pro fishermen in the research that I have done and with talking with many of these guys when they go to a new lake or where they go out fishing? What do you think it is? It's a swim bait and a jig, a plastic. What do I preach? And if you've been to my seminars in the past, I've got 3 poles, right? One of them always has a jig with some form of plastic, typically a swim bait. I got one with a jerk bait. I got one that's a reaction bait, like a trap bait and vibey. Let's see what these guys are using. Why is this, though, the #1? Versatility, versatility, versatility. How many of you guys truly jig fish? All right? If you're not jig fishing, you want to put this in your arsenal as one of the things you need to really learn and use. Because there's nothing out there that you can't catch. They'll all hit a jig. Saw guys will help you take that lure. They could be anywhere in this water column, as shown us and the sonar visions. That lure will work from top to bottom. It will show you the mood of the fish quickly. We've thrown jigs out in front of fish in 30-some foot of water, and we've watched them come 15 feet up to a bait in clear water at Alum Creek. That told us those mood of those fish was aggressive. But then you still had to present the bait right. Many times they shot right to it and they turned away. So the presentation wasn't right. But it will help you to understand that a jig can go help you fish waters fast. It'll help you swim it, drag it, hover it, hop it, snap it. There's nothing that you can't do with that jig on your pole. Let's see if I can get one of these out here. It is bingo, and we're going to talk about in the next part is presentation of how you use that. Do we always use the bait the same way, with the same weight, with the same body style and length? No, we don't. Next, though, in the lures that they're talking about is jigging spoons. How many of you guys use a jigging spoon or a vibey? Got a lot of hands for that. It's a great universal bait that works from ice out to all the way through ice. You can catch them even through the ice, can't you? You can jig it, you can cast it, you can hop it, you can roll it. It's a great bait. If you've never used jigging spoons, this makes vibration, and this will make some thump, but it's a hard snap and you let it fall. You better be watching your line though if you're going to do this. This takes a lot of practice, because if you felt the hit, 99% of the time you'll never catch that fish. He's already spitting it out. So it's a very good reaction bait. Again, switch, Berkley's got these. This is no more than a newer style of a jig with a plastic bait with scent. One thing they've done is they backed up the hook so that now it will hover better in the water. So again, what did we notice there in our knowledge of learning that maybe we don't always use the same hook pattern in our jig? Have you ever hooked one in the front? You get a different movement of the bait. You hook it farther back like this, you're going to be able to hover that bait better. All these are things that these guys are using. Jig and wrap, shiver, walleye creation. Any of you guys using any of those? If you're on Alum Creek or even on Indian Lake, Buckeye, I don't care where you are, especially in the fall, going into the winter or early spring like now, before these fish start to go into the bays and do their spawn thing, they collect a lot of times in the deeper water. Alum Creek, a lot of these fish, we're catching them right now in 35 foot of water. 35 foot. I always say shallow, not this time, because they're down there collecting, and there's a lot of perch and a lot of bait this time of year that stays deep in Alum Creek. By using those baits and snapping these in front of them, you get those reaction strikes as the bait's falling back. How many of you use rattle traps or ripping wraps? This is a fantastic bait again that you can start using starting from now. These guys use these the same way, because here's one where you can cast it, reel it, you can hop it, you can drag it. I love taking it over deep edges and bringing it up that edge to the shallow flat. If they're on the shallow flat, when you bring that up, they're going to crush it. If they're farther down, you're working every level of water depth that I was talking about in your presentation. That's how good some of these are. The other one's jerk baits. How many of us use jerk baits? How many of us just use them as a snap, twitch, or dead stick them in the really cold water that we've learned and I've preached? Do we all pretty much? How about other times? Do you use them all through the summer? Do you put them up and dust the thing and make sure the hooks aren't going to get rusty? We don't. They don't. You want to have one of the best reaction style baits that's out there right now. It's also a jerk bait. One of my favorites is also the Berkley hit stick, because it brought back the action of the old floating Rapala. And you guys still use the floating Rapalas in some of your summer times where you pump it and let it flutter? Well, you've got that same action, but with it, I can cast it a country mile because of weight. I can literally take that and put weight on those hooks and make it suspend if I wanted to, or I can really put a lot of weight and make it sink like a rock. So I've got that bait to use in many presentations. Now what about this one? The Courage. Any of you guys bought these yet? I got some, but I don't have it yet. My buddy's holding on to them. Got a few. And you said you've tried it, right?
I don't like it.
He didn't like it. But this is one of the hottest baits they're talking about in the market. Why? Well, because it's going to be an upside down jerkbait. And it's going to take a different way of presenting that bait to get this to work the way you want it to. It's going to go this way and it falls backwards with a shimmy. So it's not like a normal jerkbait. So have I been able to, and I know it might sound boring, and a lot of times you want me just to talk how I caught this fish and that. I'm really trying to help you understand that the knowledge of what's out here before you go fishing will expand your wisdom and make you more successful when you get to the lake or river to fish. I hope I'm starting to do that by showing you how these things are done. I hope I open your eyes to always be absorbing what you see. Do you look at the surroundings? If you're like this all the time, focused on your bait or talking with your buddies, how much is going on around you in the water or other fishermen are you noticing? Okay? That's very important. And if you want to learn fast before all this, and you're a shore guy, well, the best way to learn fast is that guy right there is catching fish. As a matter of fact, I remember the day when I was catching fish at Moundwood. You were right beside me, and you're the only guy that walked over. I had like 9 or 10 fish. Nobody else was catching much but little ones. And what did he say? You ain't doing nothing. You're not moving that bait. Set him up. Started catching fish, didn't we? Together. Because he noticed. He observed. Do that, and it will up your game with different things. Lures, we got all kinds of them to use, don't we? The second part, was the era of electronics will help you learn faster. That's, again, you taking the time to read and look and watch these videos that will help you. But let's go back. We got all kinds of lures. Let's go back real quick. Did you notice anything about these lures? Now remember, these are what the pros are using to win thousands and thousands of dollars. And they catch sometimes hundreds of fish in a day with these electronics. Well, if I can get you to 5 to 10 to 8 to maybe a 15 fish night by doing some of this homework, would that not benefit you? Because in the process of catching then, it becomes a memory. And memory is fishing, the way we do things, okay? So there's the swim bait. There's the jigging spoons, the blade bait. A jig style with the plastic with scent. This is more like a shiver minnow trap bait. It does a little bit different action how it falls, and it's a very good front forward bait. The jigging wrap, the shivers, the walleye creation, the rattle traps, the jerk baits of all types. Then there's that one. Did you notice anything unique about any of those baits? 1 to 10, how many did you find unique? How many? That last one? Does anybody go 1, maybe 2? So what did we just learn? Guys, they're using the baits we're all using. They're just using some more baits that are more updated, maybe tweaked a little bit, or fine-tuned, or got great color to them that we might not have. And I catch them, and I'm not saying don't go buy these baits. They will help, because new style baits, fish get used to things. Saw guys get used to things. But what I'm trying to say is, here's the point. We've all used jigs all our lives, right? It's the most versatile bait there is. And that's why they use it the most. We've got all these baits in our hands. They're just using the electronics. So is it the bait that's changing fishing that's going on right now? Not really. To a degree, it's the electronics are changing the perspective of how we are using the baits. Do you get that? Do you understand what I mean by that? Let's say it one more time. The electronics are changing the perspective of how we are using the baits. Okay? Can you change your perspective to use a bait that you love most? What's your favorite bait you like to use? For saw guys, he said probably, and that's what we're talking saw guys, a blade bait. So do you feel you use it to your potential in every aspect of the water column? Okay, so what he said was yes, and he's coming along with that. Equipment can help make it better. We're going to talk about that as well, and that's good. That's one thing that you've successfully tunnel vision. But now you gotta go like this, right? You see what I'm getting to? Open your eyes, because there's a day that trap bait or that bite doesn't work. That blade bait doesn't always work, right? The guy beside you's throwing a swim bait or whatever. That's the process of what we're talking about. I think I've already gone through this. But this is a swim bait. For an example, I don't have that particular bait with me, but I fished 3 hours at Indian Lake. Remember we had the nice big frontal conditions that came? This is where we'll get a little more fun with this and talking now with what's going on. It was the biggest low pressure system to hit us in the longest time. We're all excited, us to listen. Do you follow barometric pressure, guys, as you're fishing? Or do you wait for that pretty sunny day that comes out and it's bluebird skies and go and wonder why you didn't catch a lot of fish? Or are you that guy with saw guys that understands from fishing and watching and listening and learning that saw guys love a frontal condition, especially in the wintertime? That water gets below 40s, in the 40s, they are ready to eat and play. I fished 9 of those spots I told you I fished at Indian Lake. I had 1 bite. I fished almost 3 hours. I went back more than once and I was ready to go home. What is going on? I can usually get a few. So I went back to the one where I've caught the most, and I know there's been a cycle of fish to come in there through the rest of the time, of the evenings. I started over again. I slowed down a jerkbait and I caught 1 fish on a 12-second pause. I'm like, okay, all right, try it. That's the only bite I got. Then all of a sudden I was ready to quit. I said, this is it, I'm done. All of a sudden, my vision, as I always do with water, noticed 2 sparkling little jewels. 2 dying shad came to the surface, barely moving. They were moving so slow you thought they were already dead. And it hit me like that. I said, you dummy, you are fishing way too fast, even when you think you're fishing slow. So I took that jig and I took the one I had off, it was an 1/8 ounce, and I put a 3/16 on because I had no wind at that time. And I threw it out there on a swim bait and I cast it in 5 foot of water and let it sit there. And I tightened my line up and I sat there for a minute and all I did was went like this. And I stopped and I counted to 4 and I dragged it about 3 inches and I stopped and I didn't get to 2 and my pole went. Those saw guys were there. I knew they were. I was bumping fish. I knew they were there. I proceeded to catch 7 saw guys in a row from 19 to 23 and a quarter that night because I let my observance to one thing change my thinking as to one technique or presentation that I didn't try. Now, to tell you how good that presentation's been, I went the next night and I took the new Tiger Gilly and I did the same thing. They wouldn't hit it moving. They wanted it rolled but a little bit quicker with that pause, and they ate it. And then I took a goby on a Ned jig. How many of you guys have ever used a Ned jig or a Ned rig? Are you using it for saw guy? I got some boys that I caught them at Indian Lake, and I'll admit it, in the summertime in the weeds, playing not only for bass, but a Ned jig and just a turdy looking TRD thing is, why would they hit that? I mean, it just sits there. But they love it, and they love things like that because it sits in their face. And you can move it quicker and it creates reaction strikes. I did the same thing, and I took a goby and I put it on an Ned, and they quit hitting that swim bait, and it wasn't no more than 2 or 3 casts. I now started catching them. This is 2 different nights. I caught 14 that night on that one. I caught 16 the night before, and that was the night I was also using the gilly. So I had a 30-some fish night in about 3 hours. Big fish too, thick fins. You go on my site, you can see them. But what's the difference in that? It's the way it presents it. Our gobies a lot of times have a little more flotation even in them than the swim bait. So that swim bait might have been laying more to the side. That goby, it didn't take nothing to make it just wave in their face. I dare you to eat me. And there's video. Anybody see my video where I'm sitting there literally talking and I set the hook? I end up missing the fish and I get mad at the camera because I'm talking to the camera because I missed it. but it was on a dead calm bite. These guys now, I haven't been able to get out. I'm dealing with a lot of issues with my mom, caring for her. But guys like Brandon and some of the others at Indian Lake, at Buckeye, have you seen some Facebook pages, posts from the last few days? What happened? First day, everybody's calling me, going, we ain't catching nothing. What's up? Sun's out. It's nice. I said, well, did you give it time for it to maybe heat up 2 to 3 degrees? And then 2 days later, now everybody's crushing fish. Water temperature went up just a little bit. That's all it takes. It can take 1 degree change in water to get these fish to react. That's the difference in those. The key part is too with that, while we're talking about it, with warmth, when you are searching on location, and I think I'm getting ahead of myself. These are all talking about the baits we just talked about. I threw them back up there. We'll get to the crankbait. Is that what happens this time of year? We start getting sunshine. It heats up the water. Where part of your lake gets the most heat? It's the northeast side of the lake usually, or it's going to be the bays that are protected. So if you're fishing the South Bank or Paradise or this place, you're in a spot that really is not collecting the warm water. It's staying cold. You got to go where the warmer water is. That's your first aspect of location. Then it's the presentation, okay? And we'll say that about in this location here in a second, why that works so well in the chain of things. How many guys use crankbaits? Crankbait's a bait that you can troll for them, but from shore we love to cast them. I've got a small box that if you come up afterwards you can take a look at that will literally show you that I've made it up with different types of square bills. It's a KVD, flicker sheds. I've got the money badgers, the little number 5, number 7s. At Indian Lake, nobody around, summertime, I'm catching 25 to 30 largemouth bass while I'm doing it, but I'm catching limits of nice saw guys mixed right in, paralleling the shorelines or paralleling the weed lines. Taking those crankbaits and digging and banging them on the rocks and letting it pause. So a lot of guys quit on the summertime. Don't. It's another place where you can catch a lot of fish and have more open area to be able to fish as well. They're also great with a flicker shed. I love cranking it down and then letting it pause and get that slow little rise and get it going again. You got to play with your presentation to keep it at the different depths. I catch them on crankbaits 6 inches under the water, even in the fall. It's a different wobble and a different way of doing it. Jerk baits, again, we know there's all ways. Right now we're still in where we like to tune our baits and put a little weight to kind of make them so they stay in place. It's another video we can talk about all day. But as the water starts warming, you can now take that weight off and allow it to get a little more slow rise because you're going to be working the bait a little faster as the heat goes. In the fall, it's the opposite. We work it faster and we gain weight to make it slow as the water cools. In the summertime, heat of the day, you don't need weight on it unless they're deeper and you want to get to them. But you take that jerk bait and do the same thing. Pull it down, pause it for a second, and twitch it. And reel and twitch it. You've seen bass guys how they do it. The videos. They catch saw guys. How many of you guys really talk to your bass guys at your lakes? Great. If you're not doing that, you are again not gaining the knowledge that I'm talking about, location, depth, and presentation. These guys will love to talk to you about how many saw guys they caught because they're getting in the way of their bass. Oh, really? Well, where would that have been? What was that you were using? You see where I'm getting at? You got to use your eyes, your mouth, your friends. Bass fishing's are your buddy. The same thing we'll talk about as well is boaters in the summertime. How many of you quit boating to Alum Creek, quit fishing it when the boaters come out? Now, well, we risk our neck because we're dumb, because we love catching saw guys and the bass. Excuse me, I'm about to die here. And we want them to go out there and we want them to party. We don't even go early in the morning. We wait till it's about 10, 11 o'clock, till the heat of the day, to the evening. Why? Because they've churned the water all up, water dispersion on all the points, the flats, going into, what do you got? Mud lines. Take a jerk bait, take a swim bait, take a crankbait, throw it into them mud lines. I'm going to tell you right now, in 5 to 8 foot of water, that mud line is only maybe 3 to 4 foot down, or it's right up tight to the shore. All they do is back out a little bit and use it for ambush for all the bait that's coming by. We had a tournament last year at Allen Creek, and I had one fish. We had one fish all day. We had 40 minutes to go. We made the move back to the main lake midsummer, and I said, we're going to fish mudline. I got 2 spots. In that 40 minutes, we put 9 fish in the boat, and we thought we had won it. We lost by a little over an ounce. But it was because we made that move and used another presentation of what features we visually can find that these saw guys love. So always be looking for things like that. The locations in shallow water, again, this is what we talked about, but again about that water displacement. If that warm water right now and we're catching fish in the bays or certain channels and they leave, look at your wind direction. Did it change? What will wind direction do to water? Move it, right? So warm body of water that you had in this harbor disappears, it's going elsewhere. So you have to follow the way the wind's going to follow that warmer water. And if you're on the bigger lakes and you do any walleye fishing, it's the same at Allen Creek, we do it as well. If you notice 1 to 2 degrees temperature change, especially in the cool of the early spring, and this is big on the lake, Great Lakes, you crush fish, all of a sudden the wind picks up and they disappear. You look at your graph, if you're paying attention, all of a sudden your water temperature dropped by 1 or 2 degrees. You slide with the wind, you find that water that warmed back up, you find your fish. In harbors and bays like Becker and the Indian Lake, you go to those places because they're shallow. The wind's pushing in there. This is what starts the natural chain of feeding. The water warms up, the organisms and the plankton goes to the heat first, the bait fish comes to the plankton, the predator fish comes to the bait. The fisherman comes to the predator. You see, that is key aspects of understanding the time of the year, where you're at, and then how water displacement. The other thing we all know is current with that displacement. The boat props I talked to you about, we love boats flying over a point. I've literally sat on points where we're catching fish and they quit biting. I'll tell the guys to sit down, they think we're leaving. No, I fire the motor up and I do figure eights across where we just fished. I set the motor of the boat right back down. I say, guys, start fishing. They're like, what? I said, just do it. Boom, boom. 1 or 2 saw guys hits the boat just like that. You want to know why? Because they're not stupid. They use that water displacement and that disruption of water to disturb the bait to make for easy prey. And then they go lay their bellies right back down and wait for the next boat to go by. Buckeye Lake, Indian Lake, guys learn this. If you've never put a heavy baby in your prop wash and ran a channel and just trolled it, you don't know what you're missing out. Because they get right in that prop, and that prop wash go by, they're up off the bottom looking. Okay? So that's all about follow the bait, and then also remember where your feed areas in the lake. In the springtime that we're getting into now, and I'm talking more about that now because that's where we are, it doesn't have to be your big river that flows in. I'm going to tell you right now, 90% of the saw guys at Allen Creek do not go up that big river to Kilburn. I've only caught 3 fish in Kilburn in that river. They don't follow that because the shad goes so far, they don't have to keep going. They got masses of shad that go there about Howard Road and through that area. But they leave it and they follow that bait because before I say that, they go that way north, but they also go into bays. But that's where your map comes out. Find the bays that have feeder creeks, water coming into them. What's it do? It warms that bay up quicker than the other bays, and you start the same process. Those fish will be there first. Then they follow, as spring comes and spawn starts, they disappear. They leave the shad. They want to come down and chow on all that new delicacies of all the bait that's there. They get shad all the time. So you follow them that way. Nighttime, same thing we've talked about up here, but look for lighted areas, current push, and feed areas that you've learned. Always go back to them. Many times, once, twice, 3 times. I know we've gone back to places sometimes 4 and 5 times in a night. And then all of a sudden we hit it right, sometimes you don't. The deeper lake, it's basically the same thing we've been talking about. They're going to follow the displacement, they're going to follow the bait, the wind, how it affects them, and the depth. Again, you want to recognize a lot of these fish love 6 to 12 foot of water. Fish your flats, fish your points. Fish the ones that have a lot of good breaks, some of them with very quick breaks. Those fish, if they're not there, many times they're not up on top, then sit on the top of the point where you was casting, now cast out into the deep water, but only count it down 6, 8, 10. If you don't have the graphs to do like the sonar guys are doing. You'll see that there's many of these are the bigger fish that are roaming that lake. They're not with the packs. They're out there all by themselves. Nighttime, same thing. On Allen Creek and Hoover, I love finding the lighted areas. I love finding the rocky shoreline causeway areas because it creates bait, it gets gills, it gets craws, it gets different things like that. And we've talked about the winds and the currents. You want to finish off the tournament at night sometimes when you're putting the boat on if you're doing a boat, or just go to the boat ramps. And so people are putting their boats on and it's right at dark. Every time they load them up, you hope they're the worst guys there are, that the boat keeps going sideways. They're making prop wash everywhere. You just keep casting. Those saw guys lay right there because, again, I told you, they're not dumb. That's easy food and easy prey. I've finished limits with guys by leaving my boat on the trailer, just prop washing because no one else was there, and then they do that. They're not dumb fish at all. Presentation, again, many people ask about that. I usually only have 1 or 2 rods I use basically for almost everything. It doesn't have to be the St. Croix or the Loomises, but I like a 6'8", medium action, medium with extra fast or fast action. I use extra fast. I can use that for snapping jigs. I can still jerk bait with it. I can use it for most presentations. Reel's usually a 2500 spinning reel or a 3000. I use braid. I love braid. If you're not a braid guy, break the barrier. Open your eyes. You can put a fluoro leader on that if you're scared of clear water. 90% of the time, I don't even use a leader though, because of the murkiness of our water. You are missing so many bites by not and feeling your bait and knowing what it's doing by not using braid. Also, and a lot of people ask what braid I like. It's Power Pro, Super Slick, Super 8 V6. I use Suffolk Performance as well. It is also a great bait. So let's go back to the other parts of that. Also, when I'm presenting a lot of lighter jigs, I do have a ACC crappie stick one over there. It's a 6'6" or a 7 foot I use as well. I love using it with a really light jig and light presentations. Remember I told you it took a real light 16th ounce jig with that swim bait to figure out that's how slow I had to work it? Well, that gives you the better feel with that light, and it's a medium light action on that. Typically I also have a 6'6" that I use, which is medium light fast action. If you're snapping spoons and vibes and crankbaiting, we'll leave the crankbaiting off, the spoons and snapping. I like a shorter rod, 6 foot to 6'3". I use high vis line, and that is key. I don't care if you're blade baiting guy. It is key to watch your line and you watch it where it's going into the water. You see that jump, even though you didn't feel it, you set the hook. It's key, and that shorter rod gives you better control and feel. We like to pitch we don't cast them a country mile. Pitch them out about 10 yards, 12 yards. Give it line and swing it down. And then work it back, snapping and drop. That rod will, with that shorter rod, will give you a better feel. The jerk baits, we've all mentioned on that. Another thing that I love to do, how many of you guys see that I use a lot of swim baits and they have a red head on them? If you're following me, you see that I do that a lot with silk truce. This is even a glow perch, if you notice. It's got a red head on it as well. How many of you guys fish night? All right. There's 2 things I do this for. First of all, chartreuse, silk truce. If there's only one color bait they tell you can have for the rest of your life, I'm going to tell you right now it's a yellow truce. Solid yellow truce. I can catch them in the crystal clear water at Allen Creek all day long. And at night, I can catch them in mud with that color. There's something about it. And one of those things is that I opened my vision and found out was at night, how many do you think saw guys and walleye see color all the time? You see, in the last seminar I did here, I talked about their vision. They have cones and rods. The cones they use during the day, and that's when they see all their color. But the light penetration is the key to that. As long as there's good light penetration, they're seeing color. But at night, when are your good bites? Coming out of dark to light light to dark. Their cones start going away and the rods come out, and the rods do not see color. They're colorblind then. They see shades of black, gray, and white in hues. So when everybody asks me why I've got that yellow truce with a red head, especially at night, what color are those fish really seeing? They're not seeing red and yellow. They're seeing black and gray. Natural bait. A natural bait look. And there's a lot of things you can look about that talks about that. So understand what your colors mean a lot at night. What's one of the most famous jerk baits we all use? A redhead clown. Here's the other reason. The one thing they can see day and night is chrome. Golden chrome, they can see it at any time. But now you put that red head and that yellow and them whites, they're seeing those darker colors again at night. So those are why your chrome baits, your red heads, and a lot of those are so good at night. So that's some of the things that I hope, and I know many people get frustrated, like, you're just talking gibberish. Take some time and just trust me. And if you can't get on a boat, go study 360 imaging, all these things that you have that's available on YouTube. From shore to shore, expand your lure knowledge and how you present the bait from top to bottom. If it's not working, and many times if you see bait first on the top, I don't throw it out and sink it to the bottom. I throw it out and count to 2 and bring it right under that bait. We've seen video on sonar that shows us they're up here with the bait pods, we're sinking it right by them, they're not paying attention to it. You're working your bait right under the fish, they ain't looking up, down, they're looking up. You're going right under them. So you have to work it at different countdowns and try everything all the way to dead sticking slow. It will be the difference between success and failure. At this time, let's just break it down. I think we have maybe about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I love to break it down. I'm done talking all this. It's time for you to ask me some questions about your particular lake, about how or something that you have, and we'll relay that. And if somebody in the audience has got something they can put their hand with, we'll even bring that out. Anybody, you got something right now, and it doesn't have to be about what we're talking about, just about saugeye fishing in general, that's a question for you. Well, come on, guys. I didn't do that good. Right here.
So do you use swim baits during the day too?
The question is, do I use swim baits during the day too? There is never a time that I don't have a jig and a swim bait or a twister tail. Now, I will tell you, there are times when that thumping motion, everybody knows, I'm not here just to promote them. I'm here to promote swim baits. And you better not just have, you better have Kitex, you better have some of the other ones that are out there, because there's days when a rolling wag of a Joshie is getting its butt kicked by the guy next to you that's got a Kitex or something else on. But are you taking the knowledge with your eyes to why? One's tight, one's rolling. They feel with that lateral line, and some days they don't want that roll feel of a shad, but they want that tightness of maybe a fleeing minnow. Okay? There's some days when the fronts are so bad in bluebird that swim bait won't work. How many of you still keep twister tails or some kind of tail twister in your tackle box? If you don't have them with you, you better, because they can save your day. Go back to the chartreuse orange double jig with the real light, cast them out and work those slow. It's the most subtle presentation that at times when they're that finicky and neutral will get them to eat. All right? Something else we can help with, right here.
When you put your twister tails on, does that help focus up the tail down?
Okay, the question is, and we're going to do it with both twister tail or shad, or with a swim bait. Typically, the twister tail, I'll look at the way that curl is, and you'll see more of a straight line. That's the way I'll put the hook coming upward, so it's in line with that tail. It's this way. But honestly, it's going to work pretty much always. I've got with me, and I'll just throw it out here real quick. Have anybody followed me about this little cute jewel right here? This one swim bait caught 121 saugeyes without ever being taken off the hook. Well, it was taken off the hook, but put back on. No mended, no glue. And when you come up here and you take a look at this thing, there ain't a spot on it that doesn't have teeth, chews, and tore up. I would turn it sideways. I would turn it through the belly. I would turn it at an angle. And that's one thing I will tell you, and I got to wrap it up. This bait will swim no matter how you hook it, and it's going to do this for you. Okay, guys? And he says it's time that we got to wrap up. So I hope I gave you some new ideas to look at, and I appreciate your time, and I'll be at the Big Joshy booth if you've got any other questions. Thank you much.